Hi guys, today we will discuss about communication. But first, what is communication? Communication is generally defined as the exchange of thoughts, ideas, concepts, and views between or among two or more people. In short, communication is the process of sharing ideas and opinions about issue, people, events, and place. In additional, guys, do you know that communication is came from the Latin word communicare, which means to share and to divide out the information. We have four types of communication: the verbal communication, nonverbal communication, written communication, and visual communication. First, verbal communication. Verbal communication is using language to transfer information through speaking or using sign language. For examples, that is during presentation, video conference, having a meeting, phone calls, and one-on-one conversation. The next two is nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication is using body language, gesture, facial expressions to convey the information. For example, is you might be smiling unconditionally where when you hear something pleasing or enjoyable ideas or a piece of information. So we have written communication. Written communication is an act of writing, typing, printing the symbols like the letters, numbers to convey the information. For example, is that sharing information through books, memo, letters, blogs, and more. The last one is visual communication. Visual communication is using photographs, arts, charts, graph, sketch, drawing to convey the information. For example, is presentation to provide helpful context alongside the written and verbal communication.
My report is all about types of communication according to mode, context, purpose, and style. So, the type according to mode has two types, which is verbal, nonverbal communication, and visual communications. So, in nonverbal and verbal communication, it says here that one can be called effective communication if verbal and nonverbal communication is blended. The second type is the visual communication. These are the photos, graphs, charts, signs, symbols, and even in the form of electronic communication, just like emoticons, emojis, that will clarify the intent of the message. It usually uses apps, videos, and images that will rely less on the words. So now we are going to the next type of communication, which is according to context, and it has 5 subtypes. Number 1, interpersonal. It comes from the Latin prefix inner or within, and it is all about self-communication. Number 2 is the interpersonal. It comes from the Latin prefix inter, which means among or between. It is the opposite of interpersonal because it is all about socializing and interactive exchange of communication. Number 3, extended communication. It involves the use of electronic media and technology like television, radio, and video conferencing. Number 4 is the organizational communication. It can be formal and informal. Informal, it can be downward, in which the flow of communication is from the upper to the lower. For example, manager to staff. It can also be upward communication, where the flow of communication is from lower to upper level. Organizational communication can be informal communication also. It is like baseless gossips or rumors that came from different levels of organization. And lastly, it can be horizontal communication. It is when the people with same level are communicating. Number 5, intercultural. It is between people having the same religion, language, ethics, and social backgrounds. For example, Australians consider eye contact important when talking, while in India, it is considered an inappropriate act while communicating. The last type of communication that I will report is according to purpose and style, and it can also be formal and informal way. Informal communication, it uses formal language, orally and in written form. Research, project proposals, business meetings, business letters, they are all considered formal communication. While in informal communication, it involves personal and ordinary conversation. It can be with your family and friends, and the main purpose of this communication is to just simply socialize and enhance relationships.
Hello, I am Mhark Baltazar and the last reporter for this topic, globalization. So let's talk about globalization. So globalization is the process which technological, economic, political, and cultural exchanges make the world a more interconnected and interdependent place. So it is the process where there is an exchange between countries. So not only the technologies, economics, they also exchanges cultures and thoughts. We exchanges traditions from one country to another, which we both adapt to it. So we are not only enclosed into our own culture, but we are being exposed to another culture. So we grow up, we grow more, and become slowly globalized. Next is how the globalization happened. So I can only give you an example. So the example is the Silk Road. So when the trade spread rapidly between China and Europe via overland route. Not only China and Europe has begun trading from that era. So there are many countries that does that. So and for example, the Spain, where the Spain finds, they only wanted to find Spice Island for them to trade spices. So they want the spice while they are crusading. They spread Christianity all around the world. So they are trading country to country. They are globalized like that. So what drives globalization? So the first one is the advancement of technology. So without technologies, globalization cannot happen. So what is technologies? It is any kind of equipment or let's say machine that makes life easier. So vehicles, gadgets. So from communication, we have internet. So if we have communication from one country to another, it is only easy. You not only go there physically. You do not go there physically in order to communicate. You just use the smartphone and just click it. No, you communicate now. So the second one is the reduction of cross-trade barriers. So the strictness. So some countries have strict rules about visitors from other countries. So now, because it is now being reduced, they are not that strict anymore. So cross trade is now very easy to do. So you can trade not only goods, cultures. You can communicate with one another between business to business. So that also increases the consumer's demand. So when there is an increase in consumer's demand, trades are now being really in demand also. Why? Because if we do not have this kind of goods or product or anything, we need to get it from other places, so which makes us interconnected with another. So we need to communicate with this country to import more. We need to want to get their like goods, cultures. So because we wanted to copy or let's say imitate their culture, we get the goods from them, so we can imitate them. Like the Korean culture, we need to eat samgyeopsal, so we imitate them. We need to copy from them, so we import from them the goods that they do. So high competition, the last one, it's because high competition, it becomes easy to interconnect with other countries, because from the business perspective, if a business does not really spread his connection with others, it will stay low, and his place in the competition will be lower, or let's say the that business will go out and be bankrupted. But due to high competition, let's say high competition, this person, this specific person, the owner, will be forced, or he will just communicate with any other in order to spread out his connection. So from country to country to country, not only just businesses, in addition to that the countries. So from, if one country does not communicate with any other countries, because not only a certain country has only that product, others have it also. So if that country does not connect with others, so the communication or the interconnection from other countries will be nothing but nothing. So what's good? Let's talk about what's good about globalization. So there are 4. So what's good about it? So the first one is globalization increases free trade. We traded to other countries freely, no limitations. The second one is the global mass media ties the world together. Why? We have social media networking sites, not only for a certain country, but it connects us from our place to different places. So the global mass media, for example, the Twitter, we talk with each other from all around the globe, and it ties us together, so we can talk with one another. So the next one is it eradicates the cultural barrier. So let's say that it eradicates the thing that encloses us. So from the certain countrymen, so let's say Filipinos, they are not only enclosed to Filipinos only. So it eradicates that barrier. So those Filipinos can be, or let's say can get the culture of the Koreans, Chinese, Japanese, from the Americans, Europeans. So it eradicates that barriers. So the last one, what's good about it, is the reduction of war. How does it reduces war? So the more interconnected you are with another country, the more that country is. It does not spike the war. It reduces the chances of war, because you are good with one another. Why will you go to war when that country is good with that another country? Then, so that's it, right? Diba? You are not that really, you do not have that reasonable thing. There is no reason to go to war. That's that. So let's talk about what is bad, what is the cons of the globalization. So it decreases the environmental integrity. The next one is the seek of cheap labor, because when you have high competition, you need to prospect, you have to like get more money, so you seek cheap labor in order to prospect money well. And number 3, it limits the cultural expression. Why it limits the cultural expression? Because of the eradication, so from earlier, so it eradicates the cultural barrier. Because the barrier is gone, the culture is slowly dispersing. How the culture is slowly dispersing? So others from the certain country, so if they do not like their own culture, so they will copy or imitate other cultures. So if everyone does it, so there will be no expression for their own culture. So it is the limits of the cultural expression. They cannot express their own culture as well as they want to express others' cultures. So because they love others' culture so much, they tend to forget to express their own culture. So that's the bad side of it. So, and thank you, and that's all for the talk in globalization.